Hi, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing day. Today is Thursday, September 24th, and welcome to the Morning Brief. This is the channel to get your daily second stimulus and pandemic news update in a clear, concise, and detailed summary. If you are new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell to stay notified of new videos. In this video, I will be going over first the stimulus news, second, the Supreme Court Justice nomination, third, COVID-19 news and infection rates. Okay, let's get into it. Stimulus news. Yesterday at 10 a.m., Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell testified before a congressional hearing on the state of the economy and the status of current stimulus measures. One of the key takeaways of his speech that I noticed and questioning was that he very much supported the idea of another direct stimulus check to Americans to help provide aid to the current economy during this recovery period. As he testified in the background, U.S. stocks fell as the market pessimism and uncertainty began sinking in if Congress would and even could deliver a second stimulus package. The NASDAQ and Dow stock indices fell over 2% yesterday, and they've experienced violent and quick sell-offs over the last few trading sessions. So during the session, Powell was quoted that another round of stimulus was more than necessary and that the economy is recovering robustly, but we're still in a massive deep hole, he said. Long term, the U.S. needs to get back to a sustainable fiscal path, but you don't want to cut that stimulus in the midst of the worst economic hit in 90 years. So during the testimony, I watched the whole thing, and Fed officials criticized some of their policies and claimed that the policies only benefited the corporate companies while a record number of Americans were laid off. The Boston Fed chief even mentioned that specific niches like commercial real estate companies were already engaging in very risky behavior before the coronavirus. So these companies that ran hotels, malls, were essentially asking for it and didn't really deserve these liquidity lifelines. I agree with that statement. It's ultimately the American people who need the direct money and not companies like these commercial real estate companies or even restaurants like Cheesecake Factory. They irresponsibly ran their companies to the edge financially. They were over leveraging with cheap debt and using excess funds for corporate share buybacks to help, the high level executives and not help the underlying people. So what does this all mean? So by stating publicly that Powell, he said that they really need another direct round of stimulus for the people. The Fed chair, he's put a lot of pressure on Congress and the Senate to revive direct stimulus support to the people again. So in my opinion, Powell, he's really done all that he can do in terms of reaching the stimulus that can be done in terms of monetary policy, like basically issuing bonds and raising cash to keep the financial system afloat. And now the focus really needs to be put on the Senate and the House and give aid to the American people by providing a direct stimulus. Powell, he's a very smart guy. He worked in the corporate field many years as an investment banker and private equity for Carlyle Group. So right now he's essentially playing a balancing act with this testimony. And he wants to put the pressure rightfully back on the House and Senate to come up with another big stimulus bill. But he also doesn't want to show that the Fed is powerless in implementing something else on terms of monetary policy. So in summary for the stimulus check, this is great news because he's put the pressure back on Senate and hopefully they can come up with something in the next month. Okay, on to Supreme Court Justice nomination news. So yesterday, thousands gathered and waited in line for hours to honor the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in Washington. The day was filled with long lines of mourners who were waiting to pay respects to Ginsburg. The ceremony marked Ginsburg's death of cancer last week and was attended by close friends, colleagues, grieving family, and other notables in Washington. Throughout the day, thousands of people paid respects to the women's rights champion and the leader of the court's liberal section. This is unfortunate because Ginsburg's death had added another huge layer of complication to an election year, which has been full of political and economic chaos. And this chaos has added, basically opportunity for Democrats and Republicans to perform more political jockeying and optics, which ultimately doesn't affect the struggling American people who are in some unprecedented hardships right now. And in terms of the justice historical context, only Chief Justice Roger Taney, who died in 1864 October, he was the only other Chief Justice to die so close to an election. So this is really unprecedented for almost like 200 years, 150 years. So as of this morning, it seems all but certain that whoever Trump nominates on Saturday for the Supreme Court will be easily approved by the Republican Senate. The Republicans only need a 51-vote majority, and many senators that were questionable to oppose Trump, they've seemed to fallen in line, like Senator Mitt Romney. On Tuesday, he publicly said that he would support whoever Trump nominates. So let's take a deeper dive at the two main candidates at this moment that are likely to get the nod on Saturday. Amy Coney Barrett, she's 48 years old. She's widely considered to be the front runner. She is a former Notre Dame law professor and an Indiana native. So she was actually the finalist in 2018 to Brett Kavanaugh, who ultimately got the Supreme Justice nomination. So she's gone through this process quite a bit, and she obviously has a relationship with Trump. She's a devout Catholic mother of 7, and she has very strong religious conservative views and considered a strong opponent of abortion. So my thoughts, if Trump wants to look at this appointment in the lens of an election, Barrett might not be the most strategic pick, as she is the typical mold of a conservative judge. Devout Catholic, mother of 7, opponent of abortion. And this is going to give Biden and the Democrats plenty of ammo in the upcoming election, that they can galvanize the Democratic voter base. And, like I said, the judge is from the Midwest, and she's publicly quoted some very controversial stances on Catholic views that many Democrat voter base may not agree with. So I feel it would galvanize the Democratic base and might not be the best pick for Trump if he's looking at it in terms of an election. So the second candidate, which I think Trump is more likely to pick, but not a pick in the mainstream media right now, is Barbara Lagona. She's 52 years old, and I think that Trump will pick Lagona over Barrett for a few reasons. Number one, Lagona is a few years older than Barrett, and she has more experience on the judicial level. She's a seasoned judge from Florida. Her parents were actually Cuban refugees, and she has an American dream, like immigration profile. And she's been a trailblazer like Ginsburg for women's rights and Latinos on the court level. Secondly, Lagona is of Hispanic descent, Cuban, as I said, and a nomination would increase Trump's voting base in Florida and among Hispanics. Number three, Lagona's conservative views are not as extreme as Barrett's, and that would help in gaining kind of the moderate or middle base that may be undecided in the upcoming election. But ultimately, these two women are probably great candidates. They come from deep legal backgrounds and have a very strong educational pedigree. They're from pretty much Ivy League law degrees. If we assume the qualifications on the women are roughly equal, there's a large amount of subjectiveness, I feel, and it's going to come down to politics and which candidate will help Trump in the election. I personally feel Lagona's Florida residency and her Cuban roots will provide diversity for the Trump campaign and increase his election chances, which is just a month away from now, in November 3rd. And Trump said very positive things about Lagona. I remember he quoted saying she's very smart, very respected in Florida. So that Florida vote might be very powerful for Trump. So let's see what happens on Saturday. Let's go over the COVID numbers quickly. So I think right now there's no debate that we are in a second wave of infections. In the US, yesterday we had over 1,000 COVID deaths yesterday, and we went to over 202,000 deaths overall, and almost 7 million cases in the United States. Almost 40,000 new infections yesterday across the United States. Obviously, the big three, Florida, California, Texas, were the most hit, with all three states having multiple thousand of infections, 4,000, 3,000 infections per day in each state, which is quite a lot. And there's 11 states with over 1,000 infections per day. Globally, in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he publicly announced that we are in a second wave and introduced more stimulus and lockdown measures. In the UK, Boris Johnson, a few days ago, he was taking pretty draconian measures, having public restaurants and some public spaces closed by 10 p.m. And we see large infection rates skyrocketing all over parts of the world. India, yesterday, they reported 80,000 new cases. Brazil, 30,000 new infection cases. So I don't think there's a debate right now about the infection rates, and you see it represented in the stock market. So you're caught up for today. Please have an awesome Thursday. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Hit subscribe. Thank you. Bye.